associate with on poverty, gender and youth program, and is currently involved in studies in Bangladesh, Nepal and Vietnam on transitions to marriage and work.
Thank you very much. It's a wonderful opportunity to be here and to follow these wonderful speakers. I will talk about one program that I've been involved with for too long. I don't want to say how long, but it's actually, my presentation is actually very much about talking about something has been done and what has worked and what hasn't and the challenges around this program. I do urge you to thank you for the plug on Pop Council. We have a large and growing program of work around adolescence, and I think the evolution of the work that we're doing on adolescent girls is actually quite interesting. It started as a family and gender program, and we've increasingly focused on younger and younger girls and on very specific practical programmatic issues on how to work with girls. The Kishori Abhijan program is one such program. Actually, it's probably one of the largest. We have been involved with it for about 10 years. Just before I start on the program, let me just give you a little bit of the background to set the stage for what the program is trying to achieve. It's a program that began in Bangladesh, in a context where, as many of you know, Bangladesh has had some pretty impressive successes on gender indicators, on equality in education, access to health services, access to family planning services, and I think one of the slightly underexplored indicators is in the equality of survival of girls at the very young ages. But things that have not worked so well in Bangladesh or have not shown impressive results are actually around the issue around adolescence. The age at marriage is still very low, and there's been actually quite little change. Almost 70% of girls nationally are married before the age of 18, which is the legal age at marriage. This is just standard indicators that you all know, so I'm not going to dwell so much on it. But this is just to remind you of what this program is trying to do. Other negative indicators, which are only recently getting attention, is the very high levels of intimate partner violence or spousal violence that women report that begins at a very young age. Over 50% of women reporting having experienced some violence ever, and a lot of it is in the first years of marriage. So, and then my sort of favorite negative indicator is the rise in prevalence, increasing prevalence of dowry in a country which didn't traditionally practice dowry, because Bangladesh is largely Muslim, and the practice in Bangladesh was sort of some nominal bride price even 50 years ago, and that's quickly converted to dowry and has grown and is recognized very by the layperson on the street as being the big problem of the country and an emergent problem as sort of the new problem of the country. So that's what the background of the focus on adolescence was. This picture tries to tell a story of what it is that we're trying to do in our work with adolescent girls. And the theme is basically, there are a whole bunch of activities around empowering girls with life skills and livelihood skills, with by creating a social space and by creating opportunities for civic empowerment. There's a very big emphasis on the safe spaces component of the program. Part of it is pragmatic. In Bangladesh, if you try to do a very public sports program, it would probably not go over very well. But if you create a clubhouse for girls, that's sort of in accordance with the practices of Purdah, it's probably going to go over well. But it has the larger purpose of then talking about adolescent girls as having a presence and commanding space in community. Part of that same program, an important emerging program that we didn't quite appreciate when we started these models for adolescent girls, and it's showing up in different contexts in Bangladesh and Egypt as being important, is the whole issue of these programs creating an identity. And actually in Ethiopia, we have some really nice examples of girls flashing their ID cards of association. And in Bangladesh, it's a little bit more, not so specifically linked to an physical ID card, but girls generally tend to flash their association with BRAC as one way of creating a protected space, basically claiming, I have my brothers and sisters at BRAC to protect me if you do something to me. So I think this component of the identity and the organized institutional identity granting a passage of some sort has emerged as a very important one. And finally, we've tried to do various models of skill development. And we still try to do very specific beautician training, photography, poultry training, etc. And all of those work, but they're actually quite expensive and difficult to implement, especially when you're talking about a very large scale. What seems to work better and with sort of more immediate outcomes is a particular program around providing financial skills and providing a way to deal with your life, your economic life, with a specific set of very general financial skills. So that's kind of the nature of the program. And the idea is that these programs have some immediate effects, empowering girls, creating space, creating a presence for them, and then eventually, and there we don't have the evidence yet because of the relatively new short-term nature of the programs and their evaluations, but on things like marriage, effective citizenship, employment, etc. So, to recap, the objectives of the Kishori Obhijan program, much like the other adolescent programs that we've been involved in, is to reduce child marriage, to encourage independent economic activity, to increase school attendance, the idea being that support outside the school, having this kind of social spaces will actually make attending school easier. This was a slightly contentious dimension of the program that I'll mention later. And then increase visibility of adolescent girls in the community, which has increasingly acquired an important role. The partners in this initiative for us are two Bangladeshi NGOs, BRAC, which is now no longer just a Bangladeshi NGO, but it's one of the biggest ones in Bangladesh. BRAC is now working in several countries in Africa with a very big kind of flagship program in Uganda, but in Southern Sudan, Tanzania, Sierra Leone, Liberia. The other partner is a smaller NGO called the Center of Mass Education and Science, which is headed by a physicist, and he kind of personally runs this program and writes the newsletters and meets the girls. And BRAC is this huge 100,000 employee, sort of almost like a bureaucracy. But they both seem to have worked very similarly with their quite different characters. So I'm not going to distinguish between which program worked better or not, but we had very different models of working. So the initiative, as I've mentioned, was a life skills program, which is kind of your standard adolescent program, and at the Pop Council we've done endless iterations of it, of trying to provide specific knowledge and skills around health and hygiene for adolescents to help them through their transitions to adulthood. Livelihoods, skills training we've tried, but increasingly the focus is on financial education. And actually this safe spaces component, providing a clubhouse which has some elements of an indoor-outdoor game facilities, reading centers. This is a bad picture, but just to give you a description of the kind of facility, it's actually a very low-cost enterprise. The rooms are corrugated tin, so they can be quite hot and dusty. The floors are just normal mud floors. the girls themselves make the material that's used in the for education as well as for decoration. I think you can see some of the paper products that they make and hang. And this is very standardized, actually. This is just typical of BRAC, the way they do it. They use something called alpona, which is pictures that they draw on the floor. It's done in Bangladesh for weddings. They create their own pictures on the walls and on the floors. And the cost of these clubs is about $680 per year, which translates to about $15 per member. So it's and that's sort of the whole objective of this project was to try and be sustainable and scalable, and that's why it's right from the start. It's designed to be this way. So the program has evolved over the years. In the first clubs started as there were about 10 clubs with 300 girls. Now in Bangladesh there are 8,500 clubs with 255,000 girls. It's been scaled out to other countries, some variant of it. And the strategies have also evolved. They started being focused on poor girls in communities, and now they've taken on the character of sort of community centers with parents' involvement and the involvement of brothers. And so it's sort of gone, because of the research that we're doing and the kind of effects that we're seeing, it's evolved quite a bit over the years. There are now efforts within these clubs to try and do public action around stopping child marriage, for instance. And they're trying to evolve from being an entirely donor-dependent project to one that has community buy-in. So now the communities are going to take up and projects and pay for the clubs themselves. In general, the clubs have evolved also to address some remaining challenges, and I'll talk about that in a minute. I'm not sure how well that evolution is working. So what a lot of the evidence that we talk about in the context of these programs is based on a pilot study that we did in 2001, 2003, where we interviewed girls who were in the programs before they started, and then we followed them up 2 years later to see how it was working for them. And this evaluation is based both on a qualitative prospective follow-up of members as well as on quasi-experimental randomized design with comparing villages with and without these programs. What these evaluations show are that on most of the objectives that the club was trying to attain in terms of improving work opportunities and improving girls' abilities to earn cash, there were significant findings. There was an improvement among members. Members were more likely to stay in school, and there's some qualitative evidence of improving their school performance. But there's also demand from these girls to actually make the clubs more focused on things like out-of-school tutoring. One of the things that they fail in always is in the qualifying exams is in the English language tests. And so there's a lot of, and in math for girls. And so there's a lot of demand from the girls to actually do some tutoring. And because the clubs are set up with mentors, slightly older women and girls who belong to the club, there is actually quite a reasonable prospect of doing some of these extra school help. There is quite substantial improvement in health knowledge, especially around the kinds of things that the program tries to teach on HIV and contraception. And there is some impact on delayed marriage, which was quite impressive. And these findings are generally stronger for the youngest girls. The participation is most enthusiastic for the youngest girls, 12 to 14, and the general impact is also strongest for not just for the youngest, but also generally in the poorest areas, which I think has some suggestion about where to go with these programs. So basically, there is a change in early marriage rates, and this change is, again, the unmatched members turn out to be the poorer girls who are in school, so kind of slightly select group. And I have a paper on this. If you're interested, I can give you the citation. The problem, the challenge for this program is that in Bangladesh, the whole problem of dowry, these girls who delay marriage tend to pay more in dowry. So somebody is paying for this in a sort of in a way privatizing the costs of the later marriage. And I think that's what these clubs are now desperately reaching out, trying to address with these public actions, with programs that create sort of, make it more attractive for them to belong and stay unmarried, etc. And to get men involved so that they kind of buy into the not demanding dowry. But, I think it's a little difficult to, the part that I think is really promising also is to create economic opportunities that would actually directly address the dowry question. Because we have seen, for instance, in work with garment workers, that workers, when they can earn their own dowry, can actually negotiate better about it. And I think that's kind of where this has to go. Just briefly on the expansion or scale out to Africa, I've been getting more involved in the Africa programs. And what's really interesting is to see sort of a model that's developed in Bangladesh and how it's played out much better in Africa. And essentially it's played out better, as the Bangladeshi managers of the Africa program will tell you, is because they're less conservative. They're not so hesitant to come out and be part of a club and to come out and play sports and things like that, which is what we've been trying to get Bangladeshi girls to do, and they're much more reserved about it. But also there is later marriage. In the particular settings in Uganda and Tanzania, the levels of schooling are better, and they're more entrepreneurial. So all of these are sort of good grounds for working. The challenges there, of course, are there is a lot more early childbearing, a lot more sexual activity, a lot, perhaps, and this is not very clear, more violence of a sexual nature, and of course the context of HIV, which are not things that this particular approach has yet, as it was developed in Bangladesh, can address very readily. So the BRAC program is relatively new, and the response has been very high demand for skills and credit. There's very high demand for sports. These girls on their own come to the club 6 days a week. Where in Bangladesh, it's pulling teeth to get them to come twice a week. And there are possibilities in Uganda, for instance, of getting these clubs to actually get involved in political or civic participation. And the big remaining challenge is, of course, the adaptations that are needed in conflict zones and in specific sort of very violent practices. For instance, in northern Uganda, Karamoja region has a particular variant of this program, and they really feel like they need to both address issues of stress management and violence around the emergence of conflict issues, but also FGM, which is not something that they've dealt with before. So anyway, the point of this whole survey, very quick one, was to both talk about a program that started out as a pilot, has scaled up, and has kind of experimented with a couple of models of sustainability, which I haven't mentioned, but I'll say very quickly. So the sustainability strategy in Bangladesh has been to get more community buy-in, for the community to pay for a lot of this. For Africa, it's been to tie it with a microcredit program, which can generate some of the surplus that will basically could pay for the program fixed costs itself. And we see that being needing some level of support initially, but maybe 2, 3, 5 years down the line, these models can become sustainable. And we hope that we can come back and tell you about how they have. Thank you.